Dead Souls, Part 2, Chapter 4, Section 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Dead Souls, by Nikolai Vasilievich Gogol. Translated by D.J. Hogarth. Part 2, Chapter 4, Section 2. Read by Kalinda. Resuming after a long hiatus. "And above all things such a transaction would need to be carried through in secret," said Chichikov. "True, the law does not forbid such things, but there is always the risk of a scandal." Quite so," said Lienitsin, with head bent down. "Then we agree!" exclaimed Chichikov. "How charming! As I say, my business is both legal and illegal. Though needing to effect a mortgage, I desire to put no one to the risk of having to pay the 2 roubles on each living soul. Wherefore I have conceived the idea of relieving landowners of that distasteful obligation by acquiring dead and absconded souls who have failed to disappear from the revision list. This enables me at once to perform an act of Christian charity, and to remove from the shoulders of our more impoverished proprietors the burden of tax payment upon souls of the kind specified. Should you yourself care to do business with me, we will draw up a formal purchase agreement as though the souls in question were still alive." "But it would be such a curious arrangement," muttered Lienitsin, moving his chair and himself a little further away. "It would be an arrangement which would involve you in no scandal whatever, seeing that the affair would be carried through in secret. Moreover, between friends who are well disposed toward one another." "Nevertheless—" Chichikov adopted a firmer and more decided tone. "I repeat that there would be no scandal," he said. "The transaction would take place as between good friends, and as between friends of mature age, and as between friends of good status, and as between friends who know how to keep their own counsel." And so saying, he looked his interlocutor frankly and generously in the eyes. Nevertheless, Lienitsin's resourcefulness and acumen in business matters failed to relieve his mind of a certain perplexity, and the less so since he had contrived to become caught in his own net. Yet in general he possessed neither a love for nor a talent for underhand dealings, and had not fate and circumstances favoured Chichikov by causing Lienitsin's wife to enter the room at that moment, things might have turned out very differently from what they did. Madame was a pale, thin, insignificant-looking young lady, but none the less a lady who wore her clothes à la St. Petersburg, and cultivated the society of persons who were unimpeachably comme il faut. Behind her, borne in a nurse's arms, came the first fruits of the love of a husband and wife. Adopting his most telling method of approach, the method accompanied with a sidelong inclination of the head and a sort of hop, Chichikov hastened to greet the lady from the metropolis, and then the baby. At first the latter started to bellow disapproval, but the words "Agu, agu, my pet," added to a little cracking of the fingers and a sight of a beautiful seal on a watch chain, enabled Chichikov to wheedle the infant into his arms, after which he fell to swinging it up and down until he had contrived to raise a smile on its face, a circumstance which greatly delighted the parents, and finally inclined the father in his visitor's favour. Suddenly, however, whether from pleasure or from some other cause, the infant misbehaved itself. "My God!" cried Madame, "he has gone and spoilt your frock-coat." True enough, on glancing downwards, Chichikov saw that the sleeve of his brand-new garment had indeed suffered a hurt. "If I could catch you alone, you little devil," he muttered to himself, "I'd shoot you." Host, hostess, and nurse all ran for eau de Cologne, and from 3 sides set themselves to rub the spot affected. Never mind, it is nothing," said Chichikov as he strove to communicate to his features as cheerful an expression as possible. "What does it matter what a child may spoil during the golden age of its infancy?" To himself he remarked, "The little brute! Would it could be devoured by wolves! It has made only too good a shot, the cussed young ragamuffin!" How, after this, after the guest had shown such innocent affection for the little one, and magnanimously paid for his so doing with a brand-new suit, could the father remain obdurate? Nevertheless, to avoid setting a bad example to the countryside, he and Chichikov agreed to carry through the transaction privately, lest otherwise a scandal should arise. "In return," said Chichikov, "would you mind doing me the following favour? I desire to mediate in the matter of your difference with the brothers Platonov. I believe that you wish to acquire some additional land, is that not so?" Here there occurs a hiatus in the original. Everything in life fulfills its function, and Chichikov's tour in search of a fortune was carried out so successfully that not a little money passed into his pockets. The system employed was a good one. He did not steal, he merely used, and every one of us at times does the same. One man with regard to government timber, and another with regard to a sum belonging to his employer, while a third defrauds his children for the sake of an actress, and a fourth robs his peasantry for the sake of smart furniture or a carriage. What can one do when one is surrounded on every side with roguery, and everywhere there are insanely expensive restaurants, masked balls, and dances to the music of gipsy bands? To abstain when everyone else is indulging in these things, and fashion commands, is difficult indeed. Chichikov was for setting forth again, but the roads had now got into a bad state, and in addition there was in preparation a second fair, one for the dvoriane only. The former fair had been held for the sale of horses, cattle, cheese, and other peasant produce, and the buyers had been merely cattle jobbers and kulaks. But this time the function was to be one for the sale of manorial produce, which had been brought up by wholesale dealers at Nizhni Novgorod, and then transferred hither. To the fair, of course, came those ravishers of the Russian purse, who, in the shape of Frenchmen with pomades and Frenchwomen with hats, make away with money earned by blood and hard work, and, like the locusts of Egypt, to use Kostanzhoglo's term, not only devour their prey, but also dig holes in the ground and leave behind their eggs. Although, unfortunately, the occurrence of a bad harvest retained many landowners at their country houses, the local tchinovniks, whom the failure of the harvest did not touch, proceeded to let themselves go, as also, to their undoing, did their wives. The reading of books of the type diffused in these modern days for the inoculation of humanity with a craving for new and superior amenities of life had caused every one to conceive a passion for experimenting with the latest luxury, and to meet this want the French wine merchant opened a new establishment in the shape of a restaurant, as had never before been heard of in the province, a restaurant where supper could be procured on credit as regarded one half, and for an unprecedentedly low sum as regarded the other. This exactly suited both heads of boards and clerks, who were living in hope of being able some day to resume their bribes-taking from suitors. There also developed a tendency to compete in the matter of horses and liveried flunkeys, with the result that despite the damp and snowy weather exceedingly elegant turnouts took to parading backwards and forwards. Whence these equipages had come, only God knows, but at least they would not have disgraced St. Petersburg. From within them merchants and attorneys doffed their caps to ladies and inquired after their health, and likewise it became a rare sight to see a bearded man in a rough fur cap, since every one now went about clean-shaven and with dirty teeth, after the European fashion. "Sir, I beg of you to inspect my goods," said a tradesman as Chichikov was passing his establishment. "Within my doors you will find a large variety of clothing." "Have you a cloth of bilberry-coloured check?" inquired the person addressed. "I have cloths of the finest kind," replied the tradesman, raising his cap with one hand and pointing to his shop with the other. Chichikov entered, and in a trice the proprietor had dived beneath the counter and appeared on the other side of it, with his back to his wares and his face toward the customer. Leaning forward on the tips of his fingers, and indicating his merchandise with just the suspicion of a nod, he requested the gentleman to specify exactly the species of cloth which he required. "A cloth with an olive-coloured or a bottle-tinted spot in this pattern, anything in the nature of bilberry," explained Chichikov. "That being so, sir, I may say that I am about to show you clothes of a quality which even our illustrious capitals could not surpass. Hi, boy! Reach down that roll up there, number 34. No, not that one, fool! Such fellows as you are always too good for your job. There, hand it to me. This is indeed a nice pattern." Unfolding the garment, the tradesman thrust it close to Chichikov's nose in order that he might not only handle, but also smell it. "Excellent, but not what I want," pronounced Chichikov. "Formerly I was in the customs department, and therefore wear none but cloth of the latest make. What I want is of a ruddier pattern than this. Not exactly a bottle-tinted pattern, but something approaching bilberry." "I understand, sir. Of course you require only the very newest thing. A cloth of that kind I do possess, sir, and though excessive in price, it is of a quality to match." Carrying the roll of stuff to the light, even stepping into the street for the purpose, the shopman unfolded his prize with